Hello, I'm Tim Harris. This is Julie Harris, and this is Real Estate Coaching Radio.
That's right. So make sure that you hit the subscribe button so you won't miss any future episodes. Thanks again for popping by. Hit that like button, and don't forget to leave your comments and questions so we can get right back with you.
We will. Thank you for continuing to make our podcast, Real Estate Coaching Radio, the #1 listened to podcast for real estate professionals in at least the United States. And let us know what you think about this video. Leave your comments below. Thank you.
Welcome back. We have a really fun topic for you guys that will probably take place over 2 days. And all of you will love what the content's about. It's how to generate 10 free listing leads.
That's right. And I don't know a single listener that couldn't use those right now.
That's right. And, you know, this is going to be a fun podcast for us because we know what most of you are thinking as Julie and I say that. You think we're talking about really the exact opposite of what we're talking about or going to be talking about. We're not talking about buying leads. We're not talking about social networking. We're not talking about bait and switch marketing, which a lot of you guys are, unfortunately falling prey to with regards to, believing that you need to run fake ads saying you have buyers and things like that. We're not talking about any of that stuff. So what we're going to be sharing with you are 10 very real and free, as in no referral fees, nothing you have to spend to get these leads. And so we're going to be walking you through step by step how to generate the leads and telling you what to say, how to do it. Not to the same extent as we go through on our with our coaching company clients and all the rest of it. So let's just be clear. This is just scratching the surface, but we only do this podcast for 30 to 40 minutes a day. And after that, it's up to you to decide whether or not you want to take your education and your career to the next level with regards to our coaching program, which, by the way, a lot of you are joining. We certainly appreciate that. And it's so exciting to see so many of you that have been long-time podcast listeners. It's so cool to see you guys engaging with our other members on the private Facebook page for the first time, exchanging stories. And, it's incredible. Julie and I feel like we're really, truly on mission with serving what our highest and truest purpose is. And we have you guys to thank for that. So as far as joining the coaching program, the easiest and quickest way for you to do it is just text the word Premier. Text the word Premier to 47372. And when you do that, you're going to be taken directly to the Premier Coaching, the website. And it's easy for you to join. And you can join for around $100 a month, just depending on how you want to join. So it's affordable. And as far as the value it offers, it's incredible because you do get a daily semi-private coaching call. You get all the scripts, all the presentations. You get the listing presentation, every single possible thing you can imagine. All you've got to do is text the word Premier to 47372, and you can be on the call with your coach tomorrow. So text the word Premier to 47372, and remember, message and data rates apply. So, Julie, you've got some really exciting things to share with these guys.
Yes, these are some updated stats just to put into the mix so that you stay informed. This is mainly from National Mortgage Professional, which is a newsletter that I get and peruse every day. They stated, as of today, 40% of Americans are considering a move in 2022. 40%. Well, that's a lot of potential listings, isn't it?
But you know what's interesting about that, Julie, is that for years, people have been believing that if you have a database, 10% will be interested in doing a transaction. Yeah. The very fact that it's 40% tells you how much pent-up demand there is.
Absolutely pent-up demand. And of the respondents, about 52% were Generation Z. That's mostly 20-somethings. And 53% millennials, which is mostly 30-somethings. Then we also have 53% of remote workers are still looking for the right property. Things that they stated they're looking for: more space, pet-friendly. 39% said they're moving out of their city into a more rural or semi-rural environment.
That didn't surprise me at all.
No, but I think that a lot of people think that after 2 years of COVID, all of that has already happened, and yet it's still happening.
Well,
so there
again,
you go.
Listen to past podcasts, guys, but essentially a lot of the things like Peloton, right? A lot of the at-home companies worked at a great level during COVID with lockups, but there are other certain trends that were already starting to happen that COVID actually progressed. And we've talked about some of these before, but as far as medical technology, as far as, again, staying in our wheelhouse with regards to real estate, the cursory markets, the vacation home markets, the places where essentially people would go for 3 or 4 months of the year kind of thing, the home on the lake, those are now becoming primary residences because because the expectation is that you will hire me, but you will allow me to work wherever the hell I want to work.
But that's become normalized, right? Now that the whole world knows how to Zoom, and employers and employees are both more comfortable with being remote, that has, is relating to housing.
And employers cannot hire quality people anymore unless they're, for the most part, allowing them to work remotely.
That's right.
And that trend is not going to stop. That is something that's baked in at this point. So again, Julie and I talk a lot about Starlink and some of these other technologies that are coming, which, by the way, Julie talked me into doing another. You guys might remember a few years ago when COVID was, the pandemic really started in America anyway. We started doing a Sunday morning or a Sunday debrief podcast, and we're going to start doing something similar to that, where we can just sort of vamp on whatever it is that we want to talk about. And sometimes it's really crazy stuff that has nothing to do with real estate.
You've been warned.
But one of the things Julie and I have really been obsessing about, because we're really trying to understand, is the metaverse, and we're trying to understand the real effects of the technology that's coming around that's going to make it so people can work in the metaverse. So I don't want to get started on that, but it's very, very exciting.
Well, we'll do a dedicated podcast or series of podcasts about that.
Yeah, exactly. We will.
Once we noodle it out further. Yes. Okay. Also, the average homeowner's equity, people who already own a home, for those of you thinking there's going to be some kind of foreclosure crisis, the average equity is $178,000. That's the average. Okay. So keep that in mind. Some of our listeners who hadn't gone through the housing crash think that a short sale is just like not getting your down payment back or something like that. They don't realize the real definition of a short sale is selling it for less than you owe. Well, if you've got $178,000 worth of equity, you're a long way away from that happening.
There's no distressed real estate market that's coming, so stop believing people.
Cut it out.
Stop. Yeah, just stop. Just full stop. Listen to our past podcasts about this. Late last year, Julie and I gave a really drilled down, detailed explanation using different sources. So it's not just our opinion; it's just
fact.
From every sort of place you can imagine. We were looking for data to refute what we are observing, because we don't want to have confirmation bias. And all we found were reasons to believe that there's not going to be any foreclosure crisis. And this was really before people accepted the fact that this inflationary bout is not transitory. Does anyone even say that anymore? So what we're seeing now is what will probably be known as, and we want credit for this term, the Great Reset. And that's something Julie and I also started talking about last year. And the Great Reset is the prices of everything are being reset at a higher level and will never come down again, starting with housing. So, Julie, you mentioned this too, and I think this is a little bit off topic, but it's really important that these guys remember this, because if you have essentially a Generation Z or a millennial child or friend, or maybe you're that person, and you're waiting for prices to fall, stop waiting.
Yeah.
You've got to buy something as fast as you can at today's low interest rates and fix that rate for 30 years. Because if rates are going to increase and inflation's not going to decrease, if anything, it's going to increase, rising house prices even higher, you're going to be able to lock in long-term what will amount to free money. So if you get a house right now for, say, even some horrible interest rate of 4%, right?
Oh no, the sky is falling.
Exactly. If you borrow buy a $400,000 house, let's say it's even at your mortgage balance is $400,000, and it's a 4% note. I bet your all-in payment with taxes, assuming it's not a condo, is like $1,200 or $1,300. That same house for you to rent is going to cost you, I'm guessing, $2,000, $2,100 to rent in most markets. Now, if interest rates rise, then you're going to see a little bit of parity between rentals and what it costs to buy the house. The moral of the story is if you're borrowing money at 4% and the house is inflating at 16%, which is the overall rate of appreciation or inflation that a lot of people are predicting to happen in 2022, that house is free.
Yeah. So just for comparison, using real stats, at the end of 2021, the average sale price in the U.S. had become $408,800. Add that 16%, you're right around $480,000. So in other words, waiting by the end of this year. Mm-hmm. So by waiting, you actually are going to spend $70,000 more next year on that same house. And if you were to go ahead and purchase it at that $400,000 range and make your payments, there's no way you're spending $70,000 on that house. To your point, it's free.
Not to mention the money you spent on rent that you're never going to get back. That was just a straight up expense.
Yes, absolutely. So
buy
jump now.
A house.
Okay, now, so here's the rest of that picture, and then we're going to get on to our topic here. Knowing this, and knowing that, the average rent, so rents have gone up 14% year over year, again, according to National Mortgage Professional. And so that the average renter is paying $1,800, $1,900 a month. That's going to buy you about a $350,000 house with a little bit of a down payment. Okay, now, the next thing that people are going to say is, where are all those $350,000 to $450,000 houses? So I searched, and we are going to do a dedicated podcast about new construction.
Well, let's wait it.
I know, but for example, I looked at, for coaching clients, I looked in Chicago, an expensive market, as well as Northern Virginia, because I have clients in those areas. And in both of those very suburban, developed metropolitan areas, there were at least 20 different subdivisions of, yes, maybe it's a townhome and not a house, but you know what? You got to start somewhere. And by the time you sell that, you probably are making some money on it. So even, my point being, when you yourself or you having buyers are looking for things right around those, lower price ranges, as crazy as that sounds, maybe it's not exactly what you're looking for, but it's still better than waiting and paying $100,000 more next year.
And when you get this property, whatever it is that you're going to buy or whatever it is that you're going to help someone buy, don't ever sell it. Just keep that. Keep that as a long-term investment. And when you're ready to move on, rent it. It's an asset. And again, if you have a long-term 30-year fixed rate mortgage at 4%, you guys think rents are going up or going down, right? So if you buy this property this year, and let's say the principal and interest payment is $1,200 or $1,300 all in, to use Julie's numbers, it's $1,600 to $1,800. That rent is just going to increase. And yes. I mean,
as will the value of the home.
You live in it for a few years, you rent it. That's a long-term asset for you. You have now done something which very well could prove to be the smartest financial move you'll make of your lifetime.
Which brings us to finding more listings. And in this case, we're talking about how to generate 10 free listing leads now. And when we get into this topic, these are really good quality leads that are very likely to turn into not just listings, but closings. So let's jump in with some facts. The first fact is your real estate sign is a mini billboard full of lead generation opportunities when outfitted correctly. Each listing could and should, and we've proven this with coaching clients as well as ourselves, could and should produce a minimum of one more listing in that neighborhood and endless buyer leads. Never pay for leads again.
It's our premise that because of the nature of this market, that one listing with your sign in the yard is going to generate at least, I know this sounds like a stretch, but we'll prove it to you, a potential of 10 real estate transactions. Now, that's if you follow the instructions we're about to give you. So obviously, this is predicated on you having listings. Now, if you don't have listings, the move is to sign up for our coaching program. I'll teach you how to get listings. But in the interim, if you want to, essentially make money now from what we're about to share with you guys, you can borrow somebody's listing, and we're going to talk about that in a second.
Yes. Do you want to do this?
No.
Okay. All right. So another fact, your real estate sign is what we call a moment of truth. Neighbors, agents, buyers, and seller prospects make a snap judgment based on how your sign looks. Many, many listing leads decide to call the agent whose sign they've seen in their neighborhood to interview to list their home. Now, I'm going to share a little secret, and I'm not going to use any names, but let's just say more than 2 or 3 of our long-term even experienced agents have confessed something. They're not using a sign anymore because they think the house sells itself. That's missing the point entirely, guys. Okay, so 10 ways to turn your sign into a lead machine. Point number 1, only your mobile number or your 1-800-HOME-HOTLINE.com phone number with that extension should be on your sign. Do not allow your sign calls to go to the receptionist, the in-office agent, or anyone other than you. It is your hard work. All leads go to you.
So I want you guys to really wrap your minds around how important a for sale sign is. It is the single most powerful marketing thing that you can do because it is something that I want you just for a second, imagine driving down a residential street, the neighborhood in which you live, and people are now able to put out signs in their front yards that are the legal limit. And the legal limit, by the way, is usually about twice the size of a normal real estate sign. Your zoning laws will allow you to put a sign out that, generally speaking, is twice as large as what the local sign companies have been selling to real estate agents forever. So use the largest sign that you can. But I want you to go back to this imaginary experience. You're driving down the street and you see a sign for Facebook or an ad for Facebook. You see a sign for Coca-Cola. You see a sign for the local pizza joint. In different people's yards, they're all renting out, like a mini billboard in the front of the yards, so that when you're driving up and down residential streets, you're seeing what amounts to little billboards for all these businesses. How much do you think you could sell a billboard the size of a for sale real estate for sale sign in your front yard, how much would that be worth to the local car dealer or the local dentist or the local whoever?
Thousands and thousands and thousands.
They would pay thousands and thousands of dollars. They would. That would be, can you imagine how incredible, by the way, that would be an awesome idea for if someone wants to figure out how to do that with local zoning.
Seriously.
But we're the only ones, real estate agents are the only ones that are allowed to keep for sale signs or allowed to keep signs in people's yards. And I know there's exceptions to this, of course, but for the most part across the country, if you're even a roofing contractor, you put out your corrugated sign, that's not even legally supposed to be there for usually more than 48 hours, just depending on the HOA.
Even political signs have rules.
Correct. But a for sale sign can be out there pretty much 24/7 for as long as it takes to sell the house. And yet, agents are not putting out the for sale signs. They're being lazy. And that is criminal, because here's a statistic, and I know I'm doing these out of order,
That's okay.
Julie. So now we're going to take you down a little street called The Truth. Okay, on Truth Street, you're going to have to set aside your predisposed notions about what you think you know about lead generation. So here's what we're going to discover on Truth Street. The least qualified leads, the least motivated leads, the looky-loos, the never buys, are the people who are looking online. And those are the places that most of you are spending money to generate leads. So you guys are spending money fishing in the side of the pond where there's the least number of people or fish that will ever bite your bait. And why? Why the hell are you doing that? It doesn't make any sense. So there's, again, a bottom line statistic is what people will generally do is they'll start out by looking online. And then what they'll do on their own before they even hire an agent is they'll then drill down on a particular geographic area. And sometimes people start small and they expand, but in a market like this, a lot of people are doing that because lack of inventory, especially in resale. But what traditionally happens is they start large and they grow small. And here's one of the little scripts we teach you, or the systems we teach you when you're working with a buyer, so the buyer doesn't make you drive all over God's green earth. You ask them, now obviously this is depending on, the person, but where do you go to church, synagogue, mosque? And then on a map, have a map in front of you, an old school paper map. I want you to put a little pin there. Just put a little mark there. So where do you work? And then put a little pin there. Where do you go to the gym? Put a little mark there. And then what you're going to find is most people live within a 10-mile radius of, all their activities are within a 10-mile radius of where they live. Now, in some markets, it's a hell of a lot smaller than that. But people will say, well, I want to look all over. No, you don't, because at the end of the day, you're still going to go to the same church. You're still going to go to the same elementary school every morning. You're still going to go to the same Orange Theory every day. You're still going to do the same. This is a nature trail that you love to go walking on 3 times a week. You do not want to be too far away from that. That's not going to change. So then what you'll realize is most people will always end up buying within the same circumference of where they live, unless obviously they're reloading. But you need to keep that in mind, because then what happens is people will start focusing on a particular geographic area, communities. It starts with a community and then it drills down to a neighborhood. So that's all the filtering that goes, that's the process, a real quick version of the process that all buyers go through when they're deciding which neighborhood to actually look in. And then they drive the neighborhoods looking for any indication that a house might be for sale. Might be for sale by owner. It might be some iteration of a coming soon sign. Don't get caught on that. I know it's illegal in some markets, but the reality of it is the best buyers are always driving the neighborhoods. That's the reason that for sale signs are the single most powerful thing you can have. That's the reason that your for sale sign needs to be large and in charge. We used to get our sign. What would we get them from?
Reflective Real Estate.
Reflective Real Estate. We don't have a business relationship with them.
They are still around, by the way.
You spelled that wrong, by the way.
I saw that.
Yeah. So I need to edit that. Yeah. So Reflective Real Estate. Julie wrote down 1-800-HO hotline.
I forgot the M. That is not what we're prospecting for. Sorry.
We're going to get there in a second. Yeah, but anyway, sorry. Did you do it anywhere else?
No,
that's
I hope
funny.
not. I'll do a big search.
Search
and edit.
I bet you that's a real site
probably,
too.
Probably.
Julie, I went to Ho Hotline.
I know.
Anyway.
But to your point, that these are the best buyers. What makes them the best buyers? Because by the time they are driving that specific neighborhood, they probably are at least in the process of getting pre-qualified or are cash, but they know about what the price of that neighborhood is, and they know about what their home is probably worth as well. They've already made the decision. They want that neighborhood. They're looking for the next listing to pop up.
Okay, here's the next mind bender for all of you who are believing that you generate buyer leads and drip on them until the cows come home. Most buyers work with the first agent that they meet in person. not meet online. Because remember, the buyers will start online and they're going to land in a billion different agents' funnels, and a billion different agents are going to be dripping on them and sending them cute little videos and all the rest of this stuff. And thinking that when that buyer is ready to actually buy, they're going to raise their hand and they're going to buy with them. Most agents are not taking the time to actually pre-qualify that buyer, essentially meet with that buyer, have a professional conversation with that buyer, drill down, have an organized approach, and make that buyer, essentially their buyer. Most agents are not operating that way. So when buyers are driving in neighborhoods, they usually, I would say 90% of the time, do not have a formal relationship with any agent. Now, we do give you a script with that, and like one of the 6th or 7th questions after you've determined whether it's a buyer that actually has a house to sell, you say something like this. I'm hoping I'm getting this right. I assume because I assume because you're calling me directly, you're not working with another agent. Or if you're meeting them for the first time in an open house, I assume because you're coming through open houses by yourself, you're not working with another agent. So what I'm doing is I'm planting the seed that they're not working with another agent. Then they say yes, and then you obviously have the opportunity to make that buyer your buyer.
But this is all naturally scripted. This is part of what we teach you in coaching so that you're not all weird about asking if they're working with another agent, knowing how important it is to know if they're working with another agent.
The point of all this is your for sale signs are the most important marketing tool you'll ever have. But you better sure as hell use them. And your for sale signs, and here's really where we're going. This is Julie's 1-800-HOME hotline. It was supposed to say home hotline. You guys check out 1-800-HOME-HOTLINE.com. And 1-800-HOME-HOTLINE.com is one of the least expensive, most effective ways for you to generate free, as promised, listing and buyer leads. And the way it basically works, and it's very simple, and don't say, oh, I'm using a QWR code and all the rest of it. It's not the same. And this, if you are a brand new coaching client to us and you had the most fanciest, technologically advanced, you had AI bots that are doing all the work for you, I would still say first things first is really hot rod your for sale signs and absolutely get 1-800-HOME-HOTLINE.com. So here's the scenario. So you put a sign in the yard. Now, by the way, if you don't have listings, you can borrow somebody else's listings because chances are the other agents in your office are too lazy to put for sale signs in front of their own listings. So you can put for sale signs. I'm not telling you to fool the public at your listing. You can say you're helping so-and-so. But put a for sale sign, a large reflective for sale sign in front of a listing, your listing ideally, somebody else's listing with their permission. And then on the top of the sign, and this is where you guys screw up. You think that because 2 years ago or 2 weeks ago, you were a school teacher or you cut hair or you were maybe an accountant or you were a C-suite executive at some company, that somehow miraculously you're a marketing genius and you can outthink what's been proven in the market for the last 30 years. Don't try to be creative. Being creative makes you broke. Just copy. Copying is the quickest way for you to earn more money. If you are taking tennis lessons or if you are learning anything where you're trying to have mastery as part of the goal, you would want to copy. Do not try to innovate until you've mastered the basics. This goes back to your for sale sign. On 1-800-HOME-HOTLINE.com, there's an image of a for sale sign. Just copy it. At the very top of the sign, you're going to have a sign writer. And this is, when I see this, it makes me laugh because agents are thinking, somehow I can wordsmith this so I'll get better response. No, don't try. It says, for free 24-hour recorded info on this home, call, and then you'll have your own unique 800 number. And it might be 1-888-555-1212. Now and again, I know this is very basic, but it's incredibly powerful. Because again, we're not just looking for a whole bunch of internet quality crappy buyer leads. We want the best buyer leads. And if you put a sign in the yard and it's a new listing and you're saying, please call this number and you can get all the information you want, you will get tons of very, very well qualified buyer leads for the reasons I previously stated. So the buyers in particular, what they're going to expect is you to have a brief recording on the house. And again, this is all scripted. It's part of 800-HOME Hotline, which is also part of our coaching program. Then the script will go basically like this, or they'll hear a recording. Hey, this is ABC. I'm sorry. Thank you for calling about 123 Elm Street. It's a lovely 4-bedroom, 2.5-bath house in the Oakhurst subdivision. Has remodeled kitchens and bathrooms and whatever. Not a lot of detail. You're not going to be given room dimensions and carpet colors and all the rest of it.
But you're going to make it sound like a lovely home that I'm dying to see.
Right. And then they are calling why? Because they want to know it's still for sale and they want to know what the price is. Now, here's the problem with pricing. Is if you put the price and the price changes upwards or downwards, you're going to have to re-record it. So just for the sake of efficiency, use price ranges, and you'll understand even more why when I get to the second part of the script. So you want to put, say, for example, if it's listed for, $800,000, 800 to 825 would be low 800s. 825, say, to 875 is mid 800s. 875 to 900 is upper 800s. You guys get the gist of it. So Oakhurst, 4-bedroom, great house, blah, blah, blah. It currently listed in the mid 800s. Press 0 now to speak with someone about, to speak with an agent about setting up your showing appointment.
Or all the details or whatever.
Or whatever, right. Or current availability is what I would do, frankly, in this
Especially
market.
now,
Yeah. Okay, now what's going to happen after that? Very few of them are actually going to press 0. You've just given them the basic information. You've given them the basic price range. They don't know whether it's still available. Now, here's where it's cool. This is the badassery that happens with the 800 Home Hotline. Ready?
Word?
So you're going to call them back. Well, it's because I get excited about this stuff.
I know, it's so awesome, and it's basically free.
I mean, you and I haven't sold real estate forever, but we made so
excited.
much stinking money from doing this. It wasn't even funny.
Yeah.
We would always smoke our competition because we would pull out not just the buyer leads and double in our own listings, but in the secondary part, which I'm going to get to, is you get the first people that call are always the sellers, people that have houses to sell, or
right.
neighbors checking their price.
Yep.
We'll get to that part in a second. So you call them back. So they just hung up. Now, because they called an 800 number, any toll-free number where the person you're calling is paying for your call, they will get your phone number. Even if it's a cell phone number, even if it's blocked, I would say that the system is probably 85% good at grabbing phone numbers. You're then going to get a message. It's going to send you a text, and you're going to call back. You got the phone number of the person that just called. Now, they're parked in front of your listing or in front of the listing you're borrowing, and it is they just called, listened to the recording. Before they even hang up, as they enter the extension to listen to the recording, you're going to get a message, and it's going to say, this phone number, and sometimes the name, called on this extension. And you know what the extension is. Say the house on Oakhurst is extension 5001. Remember, they called the number, and they put an extension. They listen to recording. So you're calling them back. You know what they called about. You know where they're parked in front of. You know that's a cell phone number. Maybe you know their name. And here's what you do. And this is the part that really, really is exciting. You call them back and you say, hello, this is Tim Harris. Ring, ring, hello. Hi, this is Tim Harris with ABC Realty. As a courtesy, when people call our 800 number, we like to give them a quick call back to see if there are any questions about the home they called about. Now, here's what you're going to hear. Never are they pissed. Always they are impressed. But usually they're surprised.
They'll go, are you real?
Exactly. They're shocked that you called.
They'll go, I'm driving down Oakhurst right now. Are you for real? I just called on that.
Exactly.
Which is awesome, by the way.
They're not expecting or experienced with having somebody that, it's truly
responsive.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's going to be all their previous experiences have been absolute crap, because that's essentially what you guys are trying to lean into automated systems. You call them back personally, and you pre-qualify them at a high level. Now, if you've got a big team and a staff, obviously somebody's really good at following directions and pre-qualifying using our scripts, that's the person you want to have call back. But what they're going to do is they're going to say, yes, I just called on Oakhurst. Is that house currently available? Or is it still available? Remember, you did not say whether it was available on the recording, nor did you actually say the exact price. And then you're going to say, let me make sure the house is still available, and let me get you the current price on that property. And then this is what you say. Listen to what I'm saying, listeners.
Which is all in the scripts on 1-800-HOME Hotline.
And on our coaching program.
Yes.
Listen exactly what your future coach or current coach is telling you. Listen. You call them back. Hi, this is Tim Harris with ABC Realty. As a courtesy, when people call our 800 number, we like to give them a quick call back to see if they have any questions about the home they called about. They will have questions for the reasons I just stated. And then you're going to say, well, let me check on the availability of that one and let you know the current price. And here it is, guys. Oh, by the way, which house in the neighborhood are you thinking about selling?
Oh, well, I live over on Pinehurst, and I'm just kind of looking at this because it's bigger than my house. I really need a 4-bedroom with a loft, and I love the neighborhood. My kids go to school here.
So Julie is giving way more information than we'll ever give. But here's the experience you're going to have. They're going to be shocked that you asked the question right away. They're not going to have essentially created some kind of subterfuge. Thank you
Yeah.
for answering the question, because they won't have expected it. They're used to agents being inexperienced to pre-qualifying, wanting to try to bond and all the rest of it. Mm-hmm. They're used to essentially treating realtors like throwaways, where they're going to get the information they want and toss them aside. But now what you've done is you're holding that information at bay until you find out whether they have a house to sell. And because they weren't expecting, you've taken them by surprise, and you will absolutely start pulling out listing leads. And it is so much damn fun the first time you have this happen.
It's awesome.
It
Okay,
is awesome.
now let me just pause because we're kind of fire hosing them.
Now it's okay. Some of them, even if it's a first time home buyer price range, don't just assume, because most of the calls will be from renters, that they don't have a house to sell, because it could be somebody downsizing into a first time home buyer.
That's correct. Absolutely. So what do you guys do now? Here's the mistakes. Not using a sign at all because you think the house is going to sell itself. Missing the point. We're trying to show you how to lead generate free listing leads. So that would be one mistake. Second thing is assuming that you do call back when you get a sign call. What that buyer's going to ask you, what's the price? You guys tell them the price, and if it's not the price that they're looking in, they just hang up on you.
Yep.
That's a lost lead, and you don't even know if it was a listing lead because you never got that far.
And everything we just described to you is very low tech. This does not require a bunch of trial and error, a bunch of spending money and hoping Facebook doesn't reject your ads. This doesn't require you signing long-term contracts to buy a bunch of dubious buyer leads. And we know the buyer leads from the internet are dubious. And that's the reason that everyone has convinced you, most of you, that you have to have crap tons of them, hoping that the ratios work for you. Why would you do that? Just go to where the best buyers are already shopping. Stop assuming they're already working with agents, because most of them aren't.
I mean, honestly, using 1-800-HOME hotline on your signs and making sure, I mean, this is a way to make sure you get all of those leads. Point number 2, and then we'll probably wrap, using 800-HOME hotline to capture leads that you would otherwise lose. The system captures, as you mentioned, unlisted numbers, blocked numbers calling in at all hours. You'll have more leads, higher quality using this system, and they also convert at a much better ratio. It is a very competitive listing tool, which we didn't even get into, but you can go to 1-800-HOME hotline to learn more and then turn your sign into a lead generation machine.
I want to get to point number 5. All right,
okay.
Point number 3, install a clear, weatherproof home brochure box with every listing every time. Many of you don't even know what we're talking about because you've only been selling real estate in a certain market. Mm-hmm. And you're saying, why would I want to go to that effort? The house is going to sell itself the second I put it
Why
for
would
sale.
I spend the money on that?
Because you want to generate more leads for free, and nothing is more effective. Well, after you have 800-HOME hotline, and again, our coaching program and 800-HOME hotline specifically shows you how to then create brochures that are just chock full of more CTAs, or going to be full of more, essentially lead-inducing people wanting. It's going to be more listings for sale. It's going to be an offer for a CMA. All that type of stuff is in a brochure. But really, what you're doing, to Julie's point a second ago, is you're impressing upon the sellers in this particular market that you are not lazy and you are proactive. Because if Bob and Betty, and this is the first calls into your 800-HOME hotline, after you put a new sign in the yard, and you will experience this, and I'll be very excited when you experience this. Make sure you share your experience with us, because we do get, we still get excited from all this, which is kind of shocking to be honest with you. But what you're going to do is you're going to put a sign in the yard. It's going to be a reflective sign. It's going to be large and in charge, just like we coach you to do. It's going to have 800-HOME hotline on the top. You're going to copy the sign design that we prescribe to you. You're not going to try to be creative. Don't be creative. Just use what works. Your goal in real estate is not to be creative. It is to help people and to make money. And with that money, hopefully there's enough net profit, if you follow our coaching program, that you then can become rich, where your money works for you and you no longer work for your money. This all works hand in glove. So what's going to happen is someone's going to call you. They're going to call you in the morning, or they'll call you late at night. And those early morning calls and the late at night calls are the sellers checking the price on the house 100% of the time. Many of our best listing leads in the most expensive areas came in early in the morning or late at night, mostly late at night, because people that are doctors and people that work long hours that earn lots of money to afford those big expensive houses, they're not doing 9 to 5s. They're doing 8 to 8s, and they'll call back, and they'll call around 9:30. I know it's late. Oh, I know you want to be watching Jeopardy or whatever you watch. Okay, if this is your time, this is the season to start focusing on real estate. Don't worry about lifestyle. Lifestyle will come after you actually have created a good, abundant business for yourself, and call them back. And those people are always sellers, and they will be incredibly blown away that you called them back. That seller who was thinking about putting their house for sale now is going to put you at the top of their list, because you've just proven to them that you're not lazy, you're proactive, and you're doing things the other agents wouldn't even thought of doing, let alone putting a sign in a yard.
That's right. So stop calling your brochures flyers. Flyers are what are handed out on the strip in Vegas. You have high quality, full color home brochures, again, impressing your sellers.
Julie, you really wrote the strip
I
in
did.
Genius at Vegas. But point number 2, you write 1-800-HOME hotline.
It got into
Where
my,
is your mind
I don't
today?
know. But use simple but inviting descriptions, lots of pictures, and of course your phone number. This is on your home brochures. Give the seller 50 more brochures to restock their own sign. This is one way they know you're doing a great job for them. You want to get more referrals? Have the seller's sign have 50 brochures disappear in the course of a weekend. Here's the thing about this. This works so well in today's market because there aren't that many listings to go around. You know, a lot of our coaching clients, when they're doing open houses, which is a future point, they'll get over 100 people through the house. That is going to be a hot listing for you. You've got to turn it into a moneymaker.
Okay, so guys, remember, many of you are ready to join our Premier Coaching Program. Do not waste time. Do not think about it. Do not overanalyze it. Do not procrastinate. Otherwise, you're going to lose another year. Text the word Premier to 47372. Text the word Premier to 47372. It'll take you directly to the internal Premier page, and you can join our Premier Coaching for around $100 a month. Remember, message and data rates may apply. So text the word Premier to 47372. All right, point number 4.
Yes, using your 1-800-HOME hotline number and your specific extension for that house. On the back of your brochures, advertise something like, for more information on all homes available and upcoming in the XYZ school district or the name of the subdivision, call this number. Become a specialist in the neighborhood or in that MLS code. Be the one everyone calls to find out about listing activity. Maybe the caller needs 4 bedrooms and your listing is only a 3-bedroom, but they love the neighborhood. Don't lose that lead. Make the phone ring by having the information the caller is looking for.
Okay, I'm going to take a quick sidestep and we're going to get to point number 5. Many of you have buyers. The buyers that have houses to sell, in other words, they're not putting their houses for sale until they found something, or at least they're confident that they can find something. Here's what you need to do. And again, I'm not going to give a lot of drill down on this because for the sake of time, but if you're a Premier Coaching member, there is a sample of a flyer. Oh, I just broke Julie's rule. But there's a sample of a brochure. There's a sample of an ad, if you want to call it that you need to be replicating now. And it's called Home Sellers Wanted. And what it is essentially is you're listing out the general details of each of the buyers that you're working with, and you're lacing it back to 800-HOME hotline, or essentially you can have them send you a text. Buyer number 1, relocating from Columbus, Ohio, family of 5, looking in this subdivision and this subdivision up to this price range. Buyer number 2, you guys get the gist of it. But we give you the actual design and whatnot. Now, one of the things you can do, obviously, is run just general ads here and there. But what really works with this, this doesn't work everywhere, is most communities in the United States have these little local free newspapers that are thrown on your doorstep. High school football, scores, the lunch at the elementary school. Just different iterations of this are available around the country. What you don't know is you can actually have a very bright, like an orange fluorescent almost, sellers wanted brochure printed and inserted in the newspaper. And then what happens is that when the buyers or sellers go and pull out the newspaper, your flyer will drop on the floor. And if they're interested in selling, or if they know of any neighbors that are thinking about selling, that's going to give you an opportunity at listing leads. This is the perfect time to do it because in most markets, people are thinking that March, April is spring, and they haven't necessarily selected their agent yet. Or even if they have, maybe their agent isn't who they, frankly,
they're not doing anything for them.
Right. They're just going with whatever is convenient. Do a marketing idea like that directly to the neighborhood in combination with 800homehotline.com, and you will generate listing leads. Now, that is not free, but it's so damn close to free, it doesn't matter.
Cheap.
It's usually less than 10 cents per insert, and I've seen it as low as 6 or 8 cents per insert. So you can have a flyer printed and have it inserted into the local paper for 6 to 8 cents.
Now, we're not talking about the LA Times here. We're talking about something like Huntington Beach News or the Laguna Beach Independent, whatever. Your smaller neighborhood so it doesn't get lost. These are like 20 pages of newspaper.
And those places that will often print the flyers for you. But again, this is not an opportunity to be creative. This is an opportunity to copy so you start getting results. So use the examples we have in our Premier Coaching Program. And point number 5.
Number 5, we really have talked about mainly recognize that not all calls seem like just another buyer call, another mistake. They don't even call their buyer leads back because they're just so full of buyers. Use the script every single time. Which home in the area do you plan on selling? I don't care if that is a $300,000 starter home. You ask the question. Buyer leads are listing leads in disguise. The first calls on your sign, Tim, you mentioned this, or your home brochure box are almost always listing leads. These are neighbors checking the price. So don't blow it, guys. not just use a sign, but we're showing you how to utilize the signs.
And we're going to pick up where we left off today, tomorrow. So make sure your homework is obviously join Premier Coaching. And do consider 800homehotline.com. It is a fantastic service that will give you an unfair advantage in the marketplace. So we often get the question, which always makes me laugh, Julie, Tim, if you guys were to get back into real estate, what would you do? And the answer is exactly what we're telling you to do right now.
Yes, immediately.
Immediately. And it's so hilarious. This is such an it's $35 per month for 800homehotline.com.
And it's not just that. Here's the thing. You mentioned all the online stuff where you get, hundreds of what they think are leads, but you have to go through so many of them for so long and the quality's not great, right? When you do, and we haven't even presented all the points, just today, and let's say you get 10 calls the first week you've got that sign up. Probably at least half of them are closable transactions because they are further down the pipeline. They are further into the decision-making process. These are hotter leads. And you didn't even really touch on what happens if they hit zero and they actually transfer to you as when they listen to the recording.
We have scripts for
That's
that.
like the hottest lead you can possibly get.
It is, but you guys are seeing the difference. This is Julie and I talking about being a proactive lead generator.
My point being that the ratio is so much smaller. You
Right.
don't have to produce 100 and talk to 100 people. Maybe your sign gives you 10 closable leads over the course of, a month or less.
And this stuff is free, basically, when you really water it down. This is costing you nothing. So stop thinking that it's normal to be spending hundreds, if not thousands of dollars per month on lead generation.
And waiting.
Buyer leads, get this clear in your head, listeners. Buyer leads are abundant. There is never, no matter what the market's doing, a shortage of buyer leads. Ever, ever, ever. It could be the world's worst real estate market ever, and there's tons of buyers out there. They're just different sorts of buyers. Buyer leads are everywhere, always. Now, you will also discover the more expensive the house, the more frequently you're going to find a buyer is actually also a seller. If someone's moving up from, again, most markets, traditionally, you have your first-time home buyer area. Now, I realize in some markets now it's 5 moves typically, or 7 moves even. But for most people, it's the first-time buyer house. It's the move-up house when they have needs for kids or whatever. Then if they become upwardly mobile, i.e. making more money, then they'll buy a McMansion ego-type house. Nothing wrong with that. And then they downsize. So most humans are going to go through, before they hit the home, right?
Right.
They're going to go through 3 or 4 moves. That's the typical cycle. Now, often more affluent people will move more frequently than that. But what you're doing when you're working with that first-time home buyer price range, you're going to find that most of those calls, leads you get are definitely first-time home buyers, but don't just assume they all are and treat them all like gold. And then you start with 800 Home Hotline. As soon as you work on any of the move-up price ranges, you're going to find the more expensive the house, like everybody's got a house to sell.
Yes, either moving up or moving down.
Right.
They could be downsizing into something like that. So make sure, how do you correct for that? Well, every single time in every price range, I don't care what it is, you ask which home in the area do you plan on selling. So even if it's like a $400,000 quote starter house, maybe they're coming from a 1-bedroom condo. Maybe they got a townhome, whatever. Ask the question. If they don't, they're going to tell you, fine, sell them the house anyway.
And by the way, why are they more prone or more likely why is 800homehotline.com more effective than even realtor.com or Zillow? It's because your people would rather instantly get the information that they want. And when they call the recorded hotline, they are not going to have to worry about talking to a live person. The live person comes in afterwards when you sneak attack them and call them back and shock them with how good you are essentially with your lead follow-up.
Yes. Oh, and by the way, something that back when we were doing it, we wouldn't have appreciated because we didn't have the problem that they do. You
mean lack of inventory?
Well, lack of inventory, so you're going to get more calls. But also, when somebody's driving that neighborhood and they call on the sign, guess what? They know you're the listing agent versus when they call Zillow and they have to ask, are you even the listing agent?
But even if you're borrowing listings, when Julie and I first got into real estate, and we were in our early 20s, we sold over 100 houses our first year with pendings 103. And we did exactly what we're talking about now. We would borrow other agents' listings. Mm-hmm. And we would borrow we were basically a pre-internet version of Zillow. Yeah. We would even run the occasional localized ad featuring other agents' listings.
Yes.
And we wouldn't lie and say it wasn't our listing, but legally in every state you can advertise with permission just because it's the right thing to do. Another listing agent's listing who's part of your brokerage, and you don't necessarily have to disclose that you're not the listing agent. That's how Zillow gets away with it, by the way.
Yes, and you only have to do that until, guess what? You get one really hot listing, and now you're generating your own listing leads.
And don't be one of these agents that says, holy crap, Tim, Julie, I did what you said. I've got a listing appointment, but I have no pre-listing pack. I don't know what to say. I don't have a listing presentation. How do I jam it all in my head in 24 hours? And the answer is you can't. You need to join the Premier Coaching Program.
So we can help you.
In anticipation of your success as a listing agent. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this. And also remember, please always give Julie and I in this podcast a 5-star review on iTunes, Stitcher, and the rest of it. It really does matter. So if we're educating you or motivating you and now you're going to go get into action, please do give us a 5-star review. It's a very low cost of, it's your tuition, right, for this podcast. And if you're listening to us on YouTube, please subscribe. And if you're on any of the podcast listening, we're everywhere now. We're on Amazon. We're on Spotify. We're everywhere. Do give us a 5-star review. We sincerely appreciate it. iTunes obviously being the best one. So guys, listen, thank you for continuing to make this the #1 listened to daily podcast for real estate agents in at least the United States. We are definitely picking up more global listeners, which is incredible. We're going to start setting our sights on Mars.
Why not?
I mean, why not, right? Mars and the Metaverse.
I know.
Yeah.
See, a whole new world.
I know. We can expand. We can be the first real estate coaches in the Metaverse and the first real estate coaches on Mars.
It's all about listings, man.
You know what? I'll ask our good friend Elon Musk if he's okay with that.
I was just thinking that. Yeah.
You guys have a great day.
Hello, thank you for having watched this video. Please remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel.
That's right. And don't forget to hit that like button, leave your comments and questions below, and we will get right back with you.
Thank you for watching this video. And remember to watch the next one. You're going to love that one.